Thank you, Ben. If you would, go ahead and open your Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 4. 1 Samuel chapter 4. While you're turning, I just want you to know I'm tired. I'm tired of all the aggravation that's going on. I'm tired of this world. I'm ready to go home. And ever since Ben has asked me to do this, I've asked the Lord, and every pastor does this. They prepare themselves. They're asking God, what is it that you want me to share? And as Ben does his series, and the Lord prepares him ahead of time for these things. And I have been praying for, close to a month now, I guess, Ben, on this. And I also got a pastor friend that's wanting me to come preach this Sunday in Lexington. Lord, what do you want me to say? And I've been fighting with this passage with God because it deals so much with me, and I'm sure it deals with you. I'm sure we are all guilty of doing the same thing that Israel does and did. But tonight we're going to look at facing everyday life battles. Every day. Every single day, we all have a battle to face. Every day. I don't go a day without something interrupting my life. I want it to be calm, and I want it to be enjoyable. It's almost like you want it to go back in the older days. But that's not any growth there if we're doing that. And every time that I mention tonight facing everyday life battles, I want you to understand these are not always battles of you going in a physical war, shooting guns and stabbing people. That's not what this is about. We're going to see this in Israel's life, and we're going to see something that happened to them. But we face all kinds of battles. Our battles can be simple things like one of my battles today was trucks. We have trucks that break down. I had a co-worker in a truck, and I hate to say this, he kind of drags behind, and I have to pull up the slack. And that's a battle just about every single day. And then today, his truck messes up. So that makes me have to do even more, and it becomes more of a battle to me. But see, it doesn't have to be a truck. It could be a person in your life. It could be a group of people that you face every single day, and you do a battle with them. Every single day you're going to face them. But have you ever noticed this in your battles? Somebody always gets hurt. I do. I get hurt a lot of times in my battles. They hurt. They wound. But you know what I have come to realize? That there are a lot of people who will give up in the middle of a battle. And they're missing out on the best blessing of them all. And we'll look at that as we go through this passage. But many people, I ask them, why are you giving up? And they will say things like this: I'm just tired. I'm tired of facing this person. I'm tired of facing this situation in my life. I'm just tired of it. Some want to just throw in the towel. Some will say, I can't handle this right now. Why would God allow this to happen to me? Why would He let me go through this battle right now when I haven't got room on my plate for it? I'm just going to give up. In this passage we're getting ready to read, we're going to see Israel going through one of their biggest battles. They lost over 34,000 people over that. Not only did they lose the war, but they lost something very, very important, and that's what we need to focus on tonight, and that is our fellowship with God. They had already lost that, and they went to face their battles just like you do every day in your life, whether it might even be studying, Ben. That's a battle sometimes, and you know it. Those battles are for our good. And we're going to look at that tonight as we look at something that happened to Israel. Let's read the passage here, 1 Samuel chapter 4. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle, and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched beside Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array or in line against Israel. And when they had joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines. And they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. Here's 4,000 men have died in this battle. So they run home with their tail between their legs, and it says, and when the people were coming to the camp, the elders, the leaders of Israel said, wherefore or why has the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Why has God allowed us to fail in the front of our enemies, in the middle of our battle? So they said, let's fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh, that they might bring thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all of Israel shouted with great shout. Doesn't that sound like us? We think we got God on our side. We're ready for battle. So the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, what meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? And they understood that the ark of the Lord was coming to the camp. And the Philistines were afraid. For they said, God is coming to the camp. And they said, woe unto us! For there has not been such a thing here before or before this. Woe unto us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. But notice the change of their heart. The enemy says this, be strong, quit yourselves, or conduct yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been unto you. Conduct yourselves like men and fight. And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent, and there was a very great slaughter. For there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. May God bless the reading of his word. Every day you're going to face battles. They're certain that they're going to happen. We see in the very first verse, it says, now when Israel went out. Your battles are going to come every now and then. Sooner or later, it's going to happen, and you have to face the battles. We know that there are all kinds of them. We've experienced them. We've read about them. We know they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. They're not a pretty sight when we see them coming ahead. But have you ever noticed that during the battle, it seems that when our relationship with God just seems to be rather quiet? It seems like he's just not there sometimes in the middle of those battles. I can be facing somebody at work, and you can face somebody, and you know it's a battle. You bump heads together, and you just don't come together. And you know that there's a battle there, and you start to ask God, God, help me with this. And it just seems like he's so quiet. He doesn't tell you what to do sometimes. Why is that? Have you ever noticed that back when you were in school, you might relate to this a little more than me, but back when you had tests in school and the teacher passed out your papers, everybody got their paper and everybody was kind of excited, and some didn't know what to do, and they've got their paper in front of them. They're already trying to look at the questions and all before the teacher says you can start. They get so wound up, and then when the teacher says, go, you can start. Oh, you see them grab that pencil, and they're like, oh, man, I don't know if I know that. And they're trying to get it all worked out. Now, have you ever noticed how quiet it is in there? The only thing you would hear was papers moving around or a pencil moving. The teacher never says anything. The teacher is always quiet during testing. Have you ever noticed that? Same thing in your battles. The teacher is always quiet. He's already warned us. Now listen, he had warned the children of Israel what was going to take place. He had already told Eli. Now, you remember the call of Samuel when he was called in. You remember he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing God call, and Eli kept telling him to go back and lay down. Then when he finally listened to what God had to say in chapter 3, he said this in verse 13, "For I have told him," God is saying this, "I have already told Elijah," or Eli. "For I have already told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knows, because his sons made themselves vile and restrained them not. And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged sacrifice nor offering forever." He had already known that there was going to be a battle. And so we can clearly see that the battle was starting here in verse 1 of chapter 4. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle, and they pitched beside Ebenezer. Ebenezer and Aphek were very close cities. They were basically about 2 miles apart. But as I was thinking about this, I began to ask myself, why would anybody want to go and pitch a tent close to the enemy? Why would the enemy want to come and pitch close to the Christians? And I've come to realize that the reason that the battles are coming about and the reason that they come and want to camp in is they want to destroy your faith. They want to make you weak. And so when they go out to battle, we know that they pitch their tent face to face. Why is that? Why is it that the enemy wants to just camp out close to us and they want to make things so hard on us? Because if they can get you to deny your faith, they're already beginning to win the battle. You're already losing when you're camping out next to the enemy. And you know, that's our problem a lot of times, because some reason we like battles. Now you might say, I don't like them, but listen. Too often we camp out next to them. We see the battle there. We know it's a battle there. We feel like sometimes, hey, I'm just going to win this battle because I'm going to go up against war with them. I'm going to try to be friendly with them, even though that's going to burn them up. That's going to make them mad. But that's not how it works. When we camp out next to them, they are trying to destroy our faith. We also see that when battles hit, they're not always blindsided. We think they are sometimes. But let me remind you of something here. Our Lord has reminded us every day to put on the armor of God. We know that we're going to have to go to battle every single day. When you get out of bed, your feet hit that floor, you know you're going to face some kind of battle. You might as well go ahead and prepare, put the armor on, and get out there and stand your ground. But a lot of times we just want to lay it back and think that that day is just going to be okay. It's going to be better than yesterday. That person's going to be better than me. That situation's going to be better to me because I deserve it. That's not true. Eli knew that this was coming about. He was a king. His sons were the priests. They were in charge of worship. And yet they didn't prepare the people for what was about to take place. Does God prepare us for battles? Should they blindside us? I don't think so. I really don't. Because listen, when you're close to God, He explains things that you just can't imagine. I remember about, 5-6 years ago, I had neck surgery. Before anything came about, I always listened to preaching at work. And I kept hearing message after message after message. The same message. It was different messengers. None of them knew what I was going through. It was on the radio. All of them were about facing trials. And I told my wife, I said, God's trying to tell us something. We're going to face something, and I have no idea what it is. Just be ready. Well, I ended up having neck surgery. And we were fearful about that because the doctor said if he made one mistake, I could be paralyzed the rest of my life. But yet God prepared me for what was about to take place. But yet sometimes we tend to do just like Israel here. They knew about what was going to take place. They were smitten. They had lost this first battle. And so when they would come back to the camp, they started to blame God. They said, why has God done this? Why has God allowed us to fail right here in front of the enemy? The problem is, when God tells us that we're going to face a battle, and we know that we're going to face it, and then we start to deny it, and we see failure starting to come, and we start to push blame. God, it's your fault. Israel started doing this. God, why would you do such a thing? Why would you let us lose the battle? We should never blame him. When we blame him, we're saying that it is his fault that we're in the battle. But folks, that is a big no-no. You know that is a no-no. When I was going through this situation with my neck, I was on the couch for months at a time. I don't know how long I was there. I went to therapy. Nothing seemed to be happening. And I start to ask God, why? Why are you letting this happen to me? I can't support my family. I can't get off of the couch. I'm hurting. No relief. Nobody will help me. I can't get any relief. And so I decided, I was on a lot of meds. I don't know what I was taking, but I was so tired of staying on that couch, listening to preachers on TV all day. I decided I wanted to get up and go out. I wanted to drive from my house to Hardee's, which wasn't about 2-3 miles. Decided I just wanted to get out enough to go get me a biscuit. And I took a few extra pills, which I shouldn't have done. Went on the road, turned the radio on, and lo and behold, the message was this. Why are you questioning God? Why say why? This is what the minister said. Why say why? Why not say, what do you want me to learn from this? So I thought, okay, that's it. That's what I'm going to pray. So I started praying. I got my biscuit. I went home. Shortly thereafter, someone come knocking on my door. It was a preacher, somebody I did not know. He came in the house and he said, somebody has requested prayer for you. And I just wanted to come by. God told me to come over here and pray for you. I said, okay. This preacher who did not even know me knelt down at my feet, held my feet, and prayed for me. And his words was this: Lord, this man wants to know what your will is. What do you want him to learn from this? Now listen, I had only talked to God about this. Nobody else knew that. See, we miss out on wonderful blessings when we start to say, God, why are you doing this? And I know it's tough. But when God warns you and God shows you and you know that you're going to face this battle every day, there is a reward for that if you'll be faithful. But we see what they're starting to do here. Israel decides to get God out of a box. That's basically what they were doing. So let's look at a couple of verses here and see, what are we supposed to do? Well, we're definitely not supposed to do what Israel did, and we can learn by examples. And so we're going to learn a few things that they did. First, they questioned God. They said, well, let's go fetch the Ark of the Covenant. Let's go get God. Why didn't they have him start with? You know a lot of people like that. And you know what? The hardest part of this message is this. Joey Langley has done this many a times. I have put God in that box, and I tried to live the life that I thought was going to be okay. You know, I would listen to messages and listen to gospel music and do what I pretty much thought was okay. But then when the battle happened, the harder battles, I want to go get God. Why didn't I have him to start with? I know a lot of people like that. You know a lot of people like that. And that's where the failures start to happen. Let's go fetch God. Sounds like a little dog. Here, boy. Come here. What a bad thing to do. We're not supposed to just go fetch God. There's a song I hear on the radio every once in a while. It's pray on the little days and he'll be God on the bigger days. That means if you're having a relationship with him every day, he's going to be just as big on the bigger days, the harder days. But you know what the problem is? The problem is we like singing, and we see that they're going to sing when they get the ark. They're so excited about getting the ark, and they start singing and praising God. Oh, we got God. But the problem is, you're like me. You started singing a song a long time ago, and it goes like this. It's all about me, too bad about you. It's all about me, too bad about you. You see, that song has been sung since Adam and Eve. When God went to Adam, he said, Adam, what'd you do? He said, oh, it was that woman you gave me. It's all about me, too bad about you. Eve, what'd you do? Oh, it was a Satan. It's all about me, too bad about you. You see, you learned that song when you were born. You didn't have to go to choir practice to learn to sing it. You sing it all the time. Even around our house when we sing, Karen and I have practiced this song a lot. We've kind of slacked off some lately, but when I start on my high kicks and stuff, she'll do this number, you know. I'm playing my little fiddle for you. Same thing. You're singing your song, Joey. That's what Israel was doing. They were singing their song. Let's go fetch God. Let's bring him back. Are we to use God as a weapon? They said, well, it might save us. Let's go get him and bring him back that he might save us. We're going to just use God for a weapon. Pull him out of our pocket, shoot him down. It's a shame that I hear people say this who are facing trials. I know God. And I hear them say this. I know God, and he'll show me the way. You know, I hear a lot of sinners say that. A lot of people who don't know Jesus as Lord and Savior say, oh yeah, just trust God. Go get him out of the box. But you know, I wonder about these people's lives. They don't walk the true walk. They never have a prayer life when they sit down to eat. They use a lot of four-letter words. Oh, but I know God. I got a boss man today who used a couple of four-letter words, and he said this before he said, oh, excuse my language. Like I have an excuse to say this because I ask you to forgive me before I do it. Folks, you've already put God in the box. Well, let's see something else that they did. You notice one thing that they did? I'm going to drop down to verse 6. Well, no, let's go back to verse 4. So, well, let's go get the ark. Let's go get Hophni and Phinehas. Let's go get the preachers. Ben, I'm kind of picking on you here. I know that you get this a lot. You get a lot of people who come to you with all their problems and expect you to handle it, don't they? He's not the one that's going to handle your problem. You know, you should have took it to God first. But do you think you think God's really going to answer their prayer in this request? I mean, think about who these two men were. They were taking bribes. They were a very wicked people. And God had already warned their daddy, the king, about their wickedness. And he didn't do anything about it. But don't get me wrong here, folks. You need people. You need Christian people in your lives. You need Pauls in your life. People who know more about the Lord than you do. Listen, those are the kind of people that can help you grow. They can help you learn. You need Timothys. You know, people who will spend time with God alone. And you can see the difference. They radiate God all over them. You need Jameses in your life. People who will get on their knees and literally pray for you. You need these. Don't always go just to the pastor. Although we have a wonderful pastor. And I'm sure I could go to Ben about anything. And I'm sure, because I have been to him about a few things. But you need to trust the Lord and our Savior first of all. And that's not what they did. They just went and got him out of the box. Are we to think that just because we got God in the box, we got him out, that we're going to use him and we're going to beat the enemy? Let me share a little story about this. And you say you don't do this, but listen, you do this. You will do just as they done. They sang songs. They were shouting, "Oh God, we got God." And we're ready to go into battle. When I was 14 years old, my daddy caught me lying. Oh, I'm a good guy, right? I'm a very wicked guy. When I was 14 years old, I used to sneak around and drive my daddy's truck up and down the driveway when he wasn't there. And I accidentally run out in the yard one time and I parked it back, and tried to go out there and mess the grass up so he couldn't tell I drove in the yard. He came home, he said, "You been driving my truck?" "No, Daddy, I haven't been doing it. I've been riding a bicycle through the yard. I made these tracks in the yard." Dad was pretty smart. He came home one day when we were out of school, and I was up there driving that truck up and down the driveway, and he come driving up in the company truck, come over next to me and said, "Give me them keys, boy. You're going to get what you deserve when I get home for lunch." This was about 9 o'clock in the morning. I had 3 hours to prepare for what I knew was not going to be a good thing. Not only was I lying, but I was tearing up his vehicles and doing all kinds of silly things. So I decided I was going to play some gospel music. Daddy played in a quartet. So I went and got the record player and had that thing cranked up when he come in. I said, "Daddy, I've been listening to gospel music all day." That didn't help. Took me in the room and gave me what I deserved. But folks, the point of this is a lot of times we try to use God to get what we want. And that's what Israel was trying to do, and we see the failures that they had. Our Lord will never, ever give his glory out to someone who will abuse it. Never. "I am the Lord. That is my name. I will not use my glory to give my glory to another, nor share my praise with carved idols." There are people in the Bible we read about who faced many battles. Moses, Stephen. They were great examples of men who loved the Lord, and their faces literally shone the glory of God in their lives. And we need people like that. There are people around us who need you to be like that. But the only way that we're going to get like that is spend more quality time with God. Don't just pull him out when we think we need him. It's an everyday lifestyle. Well, there's a couple other things I want to share with you here about what can I see as results that are happening during my battles that are for my good. Well, we can basically look at the enemy. Look at what they're doing. The Philistines heard the noise of the shout, and they asked themselves, "Why? What's this great noise about?" So they understood that the ark of the Lord had come into the camp. They are very fearful. Have you ever noticed that when you start talking to people who are your enemies, who are bumping up against you and you're bouncing off of them, have you ever noticed that when you talk to them about the Lord, they start to become a little fearful? They start slanderers. They start saying things to hurt you. So that is a good sign for you to know that you're in the middle of a war. It is a good sign for you to remember that facing the battle, don't be careless with it. Remember to take your stand and to be the Christian that the Lord is calling you to be. A few weeks ago, I shared part of this with Ben. I was in one of my days where I was prideful, One of my days where I was careless. I didn't care. I was driving a truck. This was on a Wednesday. And I heard on the radio, somebody said, hey, don't go down this road. There's been a death down there. So I thought, okay, I'll just work on by it. And I'll go down the end of that road and bypass that little cul-de-sac, and I'll come back. So when I went by it, I noticed the ambulance and the police was still down there, and I went on down. When I come back up the road, the police car, one of the police cars, I didn't see another one down in there, and the ambulance was gone. So I thought, well, okay, I'll just go on down there. Lord had already told me, do not go down there. He used a sinner to tell me this. So, out of my carelessness, didn't care about them. I drove down. I seen all these cars out in the parking lot or out in the cul-de-sac. People standing around crying, sitting on the curbside crying. And I thought, well, I'll just go down here and get my one can and I'll get out of their way. So I parked the truck, walked out, got the can, looked around, kind of waved, and did my thing and backed out. And I started backing up the road. And God said, Joey, you know better than that. This was your battle. You done exactly what you've been studying about. You put me in a box, and you thought you could just get me out when you wanted to, but you didn't want me there. You wouldn't listen. So when I'm backing out, God said, Joey, park that truck, go back down there, and tell them folks you're sorry. No, I don't want to do that. That's not what you want me to do. So I'm backing on up the road. I got to the top of the road. I got out. I got a couple more cans. And God said, Joey, not only do I want you to go down there and tell them that you're sorry, but I want you to pray for them. You don't know them, but I do. I know them by name. I know what's going on. You're my servant. I don't care what battle you think you got. This is what I'm telling you to do. Okay? So I go down there. First thing I did was I walked up to this lady. I didn't realize that she was the mother of the person that had died. And I said, I am so sorry. I said, I have no excuse. I should not have come down here. She said, oh, it's quite all right. We understand you need to do your job. I said, can I pray with you? She said, well, his wife is over here. Would you have prayer with her? I said, oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am. So I went over and told her the same thing. I am so sorry. She said, oh, we totally understand. You need to do your job. And I said, can I have prayer with you? And she said, yes, please. Would you please? And when she looked at me, I could tell I was where I was supposed to be. And she knew I was supposed to be there. So she calls her whole family in. Here we are in the middle of a cul-de-sac, and all these people are gathered around to listen to a prayer. I don't know what I said. But when it was over, she asked me if she could hug me. And well, what a blessing. I mean, I literally started to cry with this family. But you know what? That's not the end of the story. A week later, my boss man, who is often my enemy, who I've been trying my best to lead to the Lord, I've said in some interviews with this man, and he's asked me, well, how did you know to do this? Well, my God told me. So he calls me on the phone, and he says, Joey, I just want to check and see if this is you. This sounds like something you do. And I thought, oh, man, what did I do now? He said, Joey, did you pray with a family last Wednesday? I said, yes, sir, I did. He said, that was one of my friends. He said, you don't know what that means to me. Folks, when you keep God out of the box, you can expect some blessings. But when you put him in there and you bring him out on your account, you're going to miss out on so many blessings. You can see these kind of results. They become afraid. They have doubts in their minds. I mean, we see that they even had doubts. They were afraid. They said, this is the God that's coming to camp, woe unto us. And they know the punishment that this God can do. You know, we see people, we hear people in our lives in the middle of our battles who will come up to us and they will say, I don't understand. How can you be so calm about this? How can you handle this? And they're seeking answers from you. They literally become afraid. Verses 9 and 10, I know we're quickly going through this. The enemy is always ready to fight. You know, if you say one thing that offends them, boy, they got them guns out there coming at you full blast. Well, what are we to learn from this? One is not to aggravate them. Now, I know when you share the gospel, sometimes they do get aggravated, and you know when to stop. But you know, you get one word in, that's all that matters. And it might not be the word that you thought you should say, but God knew the word that ought to get said. And so they were so afraid. So they even said, well, hey, let's be a man about this. Let's fight. Let's go. And that's the way the enemy is. They're ready to fight. You know that. And you can see all different kinds of faces and different people who will come ready to fight. But I want to share a couple of things with you about how to stay on track. When you're facing a battle, I want you to always remember this. Every battle has already been pre-planned. Your victory is already in the making. Listen to what our Lord says in Deuteronomy 1:30. The Lord your God, who is going before you, will fight for you as he did for you in Egypt, before your very eyes. You've seen it. You've seen God fight for you. You've seen God win the battles for you. And listen, here's another thing. Every battle has a purpose. The purpose is to produce a more godly character in you for the world to see. Now you know this, Romans 3 through 5. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that the suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. You see, the people that you are in battle with, your own personal battles, has a purpose. And it's to produce a more godly character in you. And I thought that was going to be all of the lesson tonight. But I kept dealing with this. God, what is the main picture here? Is it just that I'm putting you in a box once in a while and I'm pulling you out when I need you? That's not the main purpose of this passage. And I didn't know this until last night around 1:47 in the morning. Woke my wife up too, which wasn't a good thing. I don't know why. I didn't touch it. My clock fell off of my end table, fell behind it, down where I couldn't find it. I heard it fall, and I was like, oh, man, I'm going to wake my wife up. So I'm feeling around, couldn't find it. It was turned upside down. The lights were covered up, and I thought, man, I ain't going to ever find this thing. I'm reaching back here trying my best to get this thing out. I got it out, and I put it up. Well, I started to put it up. I pushed the wrong button. The music goes off. And it's playing. I'm hitting every button on this thing in the dark. And she woke up, and she said, you're going to have to turn it off. You got to turn the light on. Oh, man, I got to go get my glasses, blah, 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 you know. Finally, I got it to cut off. Now, listen, this is still part of the message here for you to understand. This is the point of this. I went back to bed. God said, you ain't going to sleep yet because you've still been asking me, what's the point of this whole message? It's not so much that you've put me in a box, but you've made a mockery of me. What? I've made a mockery of you? What do you mean? And he quickly led me to this. This is a story about David and Bathsheba. He said, because by this deed you have given a great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme me. I have given my enemies the right to blaspheme God because I put them in the box. God help me. I have given my enemies room to say, hey, if that's what a Christian's about, and I can imagine the Philistines saying this about the children of Israel, they went and got God and it didn't do them better good. I can imagine them saying, if that's what a Christian's all about, I don't want to be one. Folks, I got people that I work with who claim to be Christians, and I hear other sinners say the same thing. If that's a Christian, I don't want any part of it. God have mercy on us for putting them in a box and giving our enemies the right to say something like that. That's what got to me this morning. That's what this passage is about. It's not so much about putting them in the box. It's me taking advantage of God and using it in a way that everybody else can say, I don't want a God like that. So my challenge for you tonight is, have I been doing this? I want you to ask yourself that. This was a strong lesson for me to learn. This took weeks for me to finally learn this. And I have cried over and over about this. I have not been myself. You can ask my wife. I've not been myself for the past couple of weeks. I've been agitated, aggravated. I'm letting everything come against me. All because I am the one. And it took last night's time with God to make me realize, hey, I'm doing all of this because I'm letting the enemy win the battle. I've camped out next to the enemy. That's what pitching is. That's what they did. They pitched next to the enemy to go to war with them. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give space to them so that they can destroy my faith. That's what happened here. They destroyed, they had lost the war, but they had lost a fellowship with God. God have mercy on us if we do that.